Okay, well, afternoon, everyone. We are so excited to have you on the call today and have you as part of Up and Coming 2023. We are really excited to be in the Twin Cities. This is our first time to be there, and we've got lots of good programming, some good tours, and we've got 5 local food co-ops as hosts. So that's a first for us. So we're excited about all of those things. So I don't want to take up any more time. We've got a lot to cover and not a lot of time to get it done in. So JQ, the floor is yours.
Okay, so we're going to go a little quick. That does not mean you can't stop us for questions and comments. Please do throw them in the chat or put up your hand. Although I have slides up, so more likely I'll see it if it's the chat. We'd love to have everybody introduce themselves, but I also want to use your 30 minutes really effectively because I know how hard it is to give it up. So we're going to jump in straight to what we want to talk about with speakers. And as Deb said, thank you all so much for being here. And hopefully if we have a little time, if we have extra time, we'll do a little more talking to one another and introducing. But we wanted to share first, if you haven't seen so far, our theme this year is, and if someone's, also do feel free, yes, someone asked me privately, yes, feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself and what you'll be presenting on, or say, hi, I'm from such and such, I'll be presenting on. That would be lovely if you have time, if you are up for that. If you're not, if you're eating lunch, we got it. Our theme this year is the River of Cooperation. Of course, St. Paul, Minnesota is on a major river, but part of that was the concept of basically, looking at and honoring what we all bring to the cooperative movement, all our different types of startups, our established co-ops, but also looking at and honoring historically the history of human cooperation and how all the forms cooperation has taken. Yes, American history of the business format that is cooperation, but also the way humans have cooperated in all cultures throughout history, and how we're trying to bring all of that wisdom into what we're doing and how we're building on the shoulders of that. So we're very excited about our theme. And I don't know, Deb, you want to share for a second about our artist who created this?
Oh, sure. Emily is the artist who created this graphic, and if you've worked with us at all, it starts with a little bit of hand scratching and eventually it comes out to something like this. And Emily works for a small community college in Minnesota, and she is going to be striking out on her own, and she's excited about that and scared at the same time. So we worked with her last year, and she is just really creative, and she's been a pleasure to work with.
Excellent. And I apologize that I don't remember her nation and tribe, that she is a tribal member as well.
No, she is not.
Oh, she's not.
No, she works for a tribal college, but she is not herself a Native American.
I apologize. Thank you for the correction on that. I misunderstood. All right. We have 6 tracks this year. Hopefully you've noticed that, but if you have a chance to look at the website, only reason we're bringing it up is because there's a real philosophy to how we're doing it. Every year we take all the feedback, especially from you guys, which we'll really want after this, after the actual conference. If anyone is able and willing, we'll have a download call. We'll hear your thoughts and opinions. We're always shifting and morphing a little bit. This year, we had a lot of input, but we needed to kind of get back to basics, get back to foundational training. Here's how you do things. Here's what a pro forma is. We needed a lot more of that to come back into what we've been doing. We've been being very innovative and bringing in a lot of new types of ways of doing things and new stories, and that we want to keep that, but we want to balance that. So if you're in the foundations track, the business development track, or the co-op organizing track with what you're presenting, those are kind of our training lecture format type sessions. That doesn't mean if you wanted to bring in a panelist, we have 1 or 2 that are panels, or if you wanted to have an interactive portion, that isn't welcome. But the idea in these tracks is that we are trying to get across foundational information startups need about how to do the thing. So you are instructors, you are experts in those conversations, and people will be looking to you to really guide them through what they're trying to learn there and how to implement it in their organizing work. The other 3 of our tracks are where we get a little more expansive and creative and interactive. There will be our peer stories track. The format is a case study. So if you're in that track, you're telling the story of an actual experience of a cooperative, whether it's the startup's entire story, or we're looking specifically at one of them's the funding stacks. I know Maggie's on the call, who'll be running that, how you put together the actual funding for a startup food co-op, and how it actually played out for several different co-ops. So you can learn from those stories, but we're trying to learn specifically from the story of other peer startup co-ops and their success or failure. And each one has someone who is a topic expert in that session, facilitating that session to make sure that the conversation also stays, on the rails and focused on what folks need to hear. Hi, Bonnie. Saw you in the chat. Engage play if you're in that one. This one we're playing, we're having some fun. People said more interactive, please. More where we hands-on try things, do things. We've got some really innovative sessions in this one, some round tables where 4 or 5 different startups will do mini presentations and everyone will go around the room and interact with them. This one's going to be very dynamic if you're in that one. And then big conversations came back this year, which is generally panel format. And these are conversations about really big issues or changes or struggles we're having within the startup food co-op movement or the food cooperative movement as a whole. So just, and of course, I didn't expect you to read all this. This text is on the website, but just wanted you to kind of see where, if you know which track you're in, there's kind of a different dynamic. There's a much more, we don't know all the answers, interactiveness to the ones on the right. And the ones on the left, we're really trying to give people the tools to get the work done. We are functioning as experts, trying to train people on how to take on these tasks that are very core to startup food co-op organizing. I'm going to pause there. Any quick questions or comments? Okay, keep us moving. So Up and Coming has, I think, been making this attempt for a while. We've heard feedback from folks that they've experienced this and witnessed that, and we appreciate it, but we're trying to really formalize our commitment to creating an anti-oppression space at Up and Coming. What the heck does that mean? We're working on actually a definition that we will be sharing, a statement, which will be a starting point for what it means for Up and Coming to be an anti-oppression space. And so it's a work in progress and it's a journey we're on together. It is not a destination. And this work is going to be interactive, at times messy, and we hope collaborative. And we'll talk about a few ways that might manifest at the conference this year. We don't have our full statement done yet, but I did want to put this piece at the bottom for you to notice. That when we're talking about systems oppression, we are talking broadly. We are talking colonialism, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, ableism, and that's of course not an exhaustive list. So we are looking at anti-oppression from all of those angles and saying, how do we get closer to where we want to be and to manifesting the future of a cooperative movement that is at its core anti-oppressive? So a few ways we can share now that this will manifest in the space at this year's conference is that we will have a statement that we are going to have up and in a space where people can interact with it, give feedback, suggest changes, and we hope to get a lot of feedback and take that and with the community reshape it. So each year it's a conversation. Deb, is there anything else you want to share at this time about some of the ways we're going to manifest this besides the part we're about to go into for speakers?
I don't think you did a good job covering it, but it's really, really important that people respond to the statement. It's not like Jake, you said, it's not an end all to be all. It is a starting point, and we want to work with everyone who comes to the conference to create a statement that reflects our values, our views, what we're trying to accomplish in this food co-op movement. So please take the time at the conference to add some comments. Encourage those who are that you are there with to do the same, so that we have everybody's feedback and input as we move forward.
And we're going to definitely have a way for people to our whole Capital Stack crew is here today. We're going to have a way for people to interact with that is collaborative, but not at one another. And the reason and that is, we want people to feel in conversation, but we want to make this, we also want to try to find a way for the conversation to feel safe, especially of those with more identities that are at the crossroads of different oppressions. And so that interaction happen in a written format, with people moving concepts around and adding on to each other's concepts, but not necessarily in a direct conversation. So we're going to give that a try this year, and we'll see how that goes. And there are other pieces that I don't think we're ready to speak to yet that will be part of opening session and so forth. But what we wanted to talk to you guys about today, these are some of the ways we're going to ask you as speakers, myself as a speaker, to be part of the work of trying to learn how to build an anti-oppression space together. First off, we're going to do some addressing of accessibility that we've heard back from the conference in previous years. We're going to ask you to utilize the up and coming slide template, which is coming to Friday. For all, if you're going to present slides, we're asking you use the template. It has been looked over for disability access, and follow the accessibility guidelines. We've created some nice, clear, simple accessibility guidelines that will come with the slide template. This will make the slides easier for people who have visual disabilities, who need things to be larger, but also for screen readers. So, and we are asking, and this is the part for those of us who are regular presenters that's going to be hard. We are asking you to turn in your slides no later than August 25th, so we can get them organized and set up so everyone who is registered and attending can access them well before your session, pre-print them if they need to before they even come, or have them open on their computer so they can follow along for accessibility. So I'm going to be the #1 person whining and crying about this. So if you're with me and you're a last minute slide person, I feel you, but we're going to ask that you get them turned in by that date so we can be more accessible. Anything on that, Deb?
Nope. Just make sure you send them to me. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, call me, send me an email.
Great. The next thing is demonstrating awareness, something we want to make sure, and you may be presenting, you don't usually present in the startup space, so maybe you're not so aware of this. So we're going to take maybe a moment here and talk about this to demonstrate awareness as speakers that there's a diversity of types of co-ops that are organizing right now, and that we are committed as a community to making sure no one is an afterthought. We have for a long time traditionally aimed all of our content toward, honestly, a stereotypically middle-class college town, predominantly white audience. And that's going to take time to unpack and undo for all of us, for the conference as a whole. We're not expecting overnight perfection. We're asking that we look at our content and be very aware that there are people who are organizing in Indigenous communities on reservations. There are people who are organizing startup food co-ops in Black urban and Black rural communities, in white, very poor rural communities, in college towns, in cities, and that we have this diversity of perspectives, of incomes, of backgrounds that is going to be coming into this conversation, and that we do our best to demonstrate that we're aware of that, and that we're, those of us who's been doing this for a while and are experts in this space, that we are aware that we've been coming from that predominantly middle-class white college town perspective in the work we do, and that we're trying to shift that. And so just keeping that at the forefront of our thoughts as we plan our sessions. Practicing an anti-oppression lens. And this idea came from Don Moffitt and then got reformatted a little, so thank you to Don. Just asking ourselves a question as we prepare our sessions: is my content universal to all types of communities organizing? If not, how will I acknowledge this and invite feedback on how it's different? So this one will especially be critical if you are in one of those first 3 tracks. If you are standing in the position of expert, and it's something that I loved the question when you came up with it. I'm going to ask myself every time I'm doing a piece of work and I'm putting down something on a slide for my presentations: is this content, is this fact, this content, this thing I'm putting forward on this slide universal, no matter what kind of community you're organizing in, or not? And how will I acknowledge that? And I might be acknowledging it is, it isn't, or that I don't know. And that's okay too. It's okay for us to be acknowledging that as well. hopefully you're not hearing a ton of construction in the background. I apologize. We're remodeling right now. So I would take a moment and pause here and say, if there's anything anyone wants to share or comment about practicing this, or experiences you've had of running into it in your sessions, how you look at it. And we don't have a large enough room that I'm going to hold people, you know, I'm going to like, oh, you can't, everyone has to raise their hand. If you want to unmute and share something, please do. Or you can put the chat. Maggie says avoid acronyms. I love this. Maggie, do you want to unmute and say anything about it, or?
And it's not only acronyms. I think it's sort of specific words. Like so capital stack. Who the hell knows what a capital stack is, right? And, you know, it's like, is it a little pile of coins? What are we talking about here exactly? So just, I think, being aware that I might know that CFNE is the Cooperative Fund of the Northeast, but many people don't know that. I might know that a capital stack means the way you put together your different types of financing, but that's sort of language that's specific to a certain industry. And so listening for yourself, using buzzwords or acronyms and defining them and demystifying them and spelling them out. I mean, I am always in meetings where I say, what does that mean? And so I just need to ask that of myself, right? And just try to get out there in front of, know myself what I'm saying that's not going to be comprehensible to a lot of different people.
I love that. Yeah, Heather added defining jargon, and it's something to consider. You know, sometimes we utilize certain jargon in a session because we're trying to move fast on a very, very technical topic. But I love, you know, you could have a slide at the beginning of your session that defines the jargon and just go over it real quick. And then those who have used screen readers or whatever, or everyone's got the option to pull up your slides beforehand, can always flip back to that. Because I know sometimes I feel like, but I don't know if I have time to explain every piece of jargon, but like you just said, like Maggie just said, but we're creating an accessibility boundary if we don't. I absolutely love that. Anyone else want to share something? Yes. Oh, Bonnie, skip the inside jokes with other co-op folks. Yes, Bonnie, do you want to speak to this for a minute?
Yeah, just when I first came into the co-op movement, one of the national conferences that shall not be named, there were so many inside jokes that were told up on the stage, and I felt already uncomfortable, and it felt like, I know that it was honoring the camaraderie around people that have been organizing together for a while, but it made me feel like I don't really belong here and I don't understand anything that's happening. So I haven't experienced that at Up and Coming, but just thought I would name it.
I think it can happen though, especially with those of us who've been involved longer. So I appreciate that. Anyone else want to throw something else in here? Comment, thought?
I think just making it clear at the outset what the rules of engagement are, right? Essentially, like, how are we going to play here together in this space today, right? How are we going to handle questions? How do we want you to get up or sit down or move around the room or whatever it is, so that people sort of feel comfortable and can not worry about, oh, am I going to offend the presenters if I XYZ, and they can just kind of focus and be present.
I like that as well. Absolutely. Setting the space and letting people know how they can utilize the space. Because there can be a lot of cultural assumptions tied up in not stating those things. I know I've definitely made that mistake. I will throw out one for those of us who are speaking from the expert position too, in the first 3 tracks, is to just be very careful to make sure, again, that we're making clear what we know and what we don't know. That we are really going out of our way to say, one of the things I tend to say is like, this has been universally true with every startup that I've had the opportunity to work with so far. So, because some people go, well, it's different for us because of income level. I'm like, well, I've worked with co-ops that are in low-income communities, in cities and in rural communities, and this has been universally true in their experience so far, to my knowledge, is to acknowledge room for there be difference. But if I'm saying something is pretty universally true and it's important I get that across to you, that I leave space for that, but I acknowledge that this is based on what I've witnessed in communities like yours. If I haven't witnessed it in communities like yours, then I acknowledge that as well. We got some more comments coming in. Great, Heather, yeah. In addition, skipping a glossier FAQ sheet. Yeah, I love that idea. Faye, you want to just take a second and speak to that?
Yeah, sorry, I was making lunch, multitasking. No, we're good. Yeah, I guess just like I experienced this as a person who was just like on a board going to places like CCMA too, where it's helpful to have like a reference, because even if you're intending to skip acronyms, some term is not going to make sense to people. And having just kind of a reference sheet for the session can help people feel more confident in asking questions and engaging, I think.
And I apologize because I told you I can't see hands right now, so I apologize that Leela, Sam, and Winston have hands up. So we'll start with Leela, then Sam, then Winston.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, avoid assuming you know more about a co-op than you do based on kind of like things like, is it in a low income community or is it in a community of color? Because I just know there's so much diversity within co-ops, even in those broad categories, or even in the college towns. There's a lot of diversity around like why people are organizing. And I think like I've made this mistake of assuming because a co-op that's in a community similar to mine is going to be like my co-op. So as an example, like Gem City Market, we have like 20 to 30% natural and organic. Detroit is going to have, I think, like 80% natural and organic, but we are similar in lots of other ways. So just avoiding assuming that you know.
I like that. Thank you. Sam, did you have something you want to share?
Oh, I just I agree with the folks saying, like, speaking from personal perspective, like put your content as an expert into perspective for people. I think it kind of ties in with what Bonnie was saying about how some of us who've known folks, we assume things about people, but other people may not know where we're coming from and kind of what our context of like reference context is. So it's the combo of FAQs, letting folks know how you're okay with interacting with people during your session. I am comfortable with people getting up and walking around. Or just letting folks know you can do that, but it will distract me. It might take me a minute to come back on track, right? Some of those things, kind of grounding people in how you're going to present your session, can help people to feel a bit more relaxed and more interactive throughout. And I agree with Bonnie's point too. Is there anything in the slide deck that will be recommendations around community engagement or agreements, things like that? Just second that.
Excellent, thank you. Winston.
I'm going to come back to the jargon and just maybe take a different perspective, which is every profession, every trade has jargon. There are professional terms, and in educating the population that's attending this conference, don't we want to bring them into the jargon and take that as an opportunity to talk about sales per labor hour and what you're talking about when you say that, instead of saying SPLH or whatever? But get the jargon in the room as a part of strengthening their approach, because the professionals they're working with are going to use jargon and they're not going to slow down. So we might as well help get people acclimated, is my perspective.
Thanks for sharing that. I think there's a very clear midpoint that kind of evolved as the conversation went on, of like, let's put the jargon out there, but let's define it. And so there's an entry point. So I think it is, I don't know if that also encompasses what you're thinking, is like, yes, we need to use it because they're going to keep hearing it. They are in this world now, but that we need to make sure that we're giving them an entry point into that jargon or conversation, if it's necessary jargon, if it's important industry jargon. Does that encapsulate that?
Yeah, you captured it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I got one more slide we're going to move on to here. And keep us on time. Well, I think the last thing we are going to ask all speakers to do is, this one might be the toughest to some degree, make space. Because despite our best attempts, we are absolutely going to leave perspectives of marginalized communities, especially, out at times. It's going to happen. And we want to invite feedback on whether what we're presenting is applicable for the communities of the room or how it's different. I do not mean your entire session where you are an expert presenting on, in this case, I'll be doing market studies and how to utilize market studies becomes a conversation about, well, it's different here and this and that. And then we get into this lengthy conversation about our feelings about how market, but we do want to leave space. How do we leave space? How do we find a few places, even those of us who are presenting in that I need to get a certain amount of information across that people were promised? How do we create a few opportunities to say, what are people's feelings, reactions to that? Is it different in your community, or do you feel like it's different in your community, and how? So consider one thing that I have done, I learned from another presenter, I wish I could remember who. I just told people again when setting the room that and I learned this from another presenter, that I'm going to have a large sheet of paper here. And I am going to, when people say, you know, I'm not sure that's applicable in my community, or that's different here, or I have concerns that that doesn't apply, I'm jotting that down. Not, again, it took like an extra minute in the whole session. It did not take over the session to note those things. So they knew they were heard, that I heard them and said, okay, you know, thank you for that perspective. This is what I have witnessed, or, you know, I need to consider that and I haven't. And just have it make sure that they know it's been acknowledged and that the room has seen it be acknowledged is something that, again, I learned from a presenter, I wish I could remember who, that when I used it in a session, I was told really helped make space for people to share that, you know, their experience might not be identical to the one that is being put out there as the way we do things or the way it happens at startup food co-ops. Any comments or thoughts people want to share on that? I'm gonna stop with this and let people see each other. Okay, a lot of quiet now. These are the things we just really wanted to go over with folks as speakers. We really are grateful to you all for taking the time to come talk with us. And honestly, you, by presenting at this conference, are taking on some of the work with us of trying to doing the messy work of figuring out how we create an anti-oppressive space. So we just want to thank you in advance for thinking these things through, for participating in them, and keeping them at the center of what you're doing. And we are going to be really looking forward to you. They're not going to be, of course, mandatory, but it's a couple sessions after the conference to ask you how that went, what you learned, what you would suggest. And we really are looking forward to your feedback. You guys are intrinsic to us doing this work. Any last thoughts, Deb, you want to share?
No, I would echo again JQ's thoughts. Thank you for taking the time today, and thank you again for agreeing to be part of this up and coming conference this fall.
And we'll have those slide decks and guidelines out to you Friday.
Yes.
Thank you so much, everyone.
JQ,
Thank you for doing this. This was great.
JQ, will you share these few slides with us?
Sure, I absolutely can.
I think it would be helpful.
Okay, I will do. Thank you for the request, Maggie. All right, thanks everyone. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Did you stop recording? Yeah, good.
Oh, no. Where is it? Where's the